Hi, welcome to Portage County Matters. I'm Patty Dreier, Portage County Executive. So glad that you're here with us today. My guest today is our EMS Association President, Tim Cisewski, and I can't wait to introduce you to him if you haven't met him before, and we can talk about first responders across our county. We'll do that in just a minute. I've got a few updates first. Number one, our ADRC, our Aging and Disability Resource Center it's I don't want to say board of directors, it's our board for our ADRC, has a vacancy for someone ages 65 and older to fill a spot to help us with our governance of our ADRC services in Portage County. If you're interested in learning more about how you can contribute, how you could volunteer to be part of this team, that is a very important body for us in our government here to guide us on aging and disability services in the county, why don't you give our office a call? We'd love to talk with you, and then we can send you out an application. And I'll be taking a look at those and making a recommendation for appointment. Second, Farm Technology Days. We've talked about it for many months now, actually for years, since it was about 4 years ago that we, a team of us, went to Madison to make the pitch to bring the show to Portage County. And it is now 18 days away as of the taping of this show. We tape it in late July for a viewing of the show all the month of August. Anyway, as you may remember, the Farm Technology Days event is August 12th through 14th. Anyway, it's bigger and better than I ever imagined it to be. I just had the opportunity this week to take a look at the official program, and I went through every page of what's going on, all the different sponsors, all the different tents and events and volunteers involved, what we'll get to eat, what we'll get to do. It is incredible, and I really want to put a shout out to say thank you again to our host farm families, the Feltz Family Farms, and then the Blue Top Farms here in Portage County. The fact that there are a team of farms joining to make this event possible for us here is indicative of the kind of community we are. We're all about partnerships. And so again, that just tickles me. The other thing I wanted to do in my note here today is to acknowledge the team that went down to Madison to pitch that this event come here. Way back 4 plus years ago, that was Marion Bud Flood, he's a county board supervisor, Dale O'Brien, also a county board supervisor, Ken Schroeder, Ken Schroeder, he's our Ag Extension Agent, Melissa Sabel with our Visitor and Convention Bureau, and myself. So we went to Madison, we put the pitch out, and we asked to bring it here to Portage County because it hadn't been here since 1982. And so Ken Schroeder made an amazing pitch for all the agricultural perspectives with Dale's help since he's a potato farmer, and with Bud Flood's help since he's been so involved on ag and extension kinds of work and planning and zoning work in our county. Anyway, the rest is just about history. We're looking forward to around 60 to 80,000 people coming here to Portage County, and I hope you don't miss this. There are 6 different admission entrances. It'll cost you $6 to get in, if I remember right from reading over the weekend. Our executive team has met for hundreds of hours to plan this event. And so let me tell you, it is going to be spectacular. The Visitor and Convention Bureau here in Stevens Point, led by Sarah Brish, has really carried this whole event on their shoulders, and I have to give them a ton of credit on behalf of all of us here in this county, for they're amazing in their work. And again, thank you to everybody who's planned and made this possible. Now, the other thing that I find so interesting is Jamie Gabert, my executive assistant in the office, has been working all along on the executive team, and we talk about the numbers of volunteers that we needed to recruit for this event, and then those that we recruited. And I would tell you that we have 2,000 volunteer shirts ready to be donned by 2,000 volunteers out there. So it is even more than many farm technology days across the state have had in the way of numbers of volunteers, and again, indicative of the kind of community we are here, Portage County. So looking forward to seeing you there. I'll be there all 3 days. I believe the governor should be there on the second day of the event, and it is going to be amazing. So don't miss it. Don't miss it. The other thing, the last bit of information I wanted to provide at the top of the show before we get to our guest is related to the fact that I delivered the State of the County speech in July on the 15th of that month. I delivered it to the County Board of Supervisors, but also the community at the same time. A copy of the address I gave is available at the county's website, and it's on the home page right now, and it'll stay there for a little while before we scoot it to the County Executive's Department page. The subject of that speech was groundwater, and only groundwater. And that is because the topic is so important to all of us. I'll tell you a little bit more about that speech in a minute, but I just want you to know that for those of you who may not have comfort with the internet or access to the internet, that's the reason I want to give a little bit more particulars about the speech I gave, the work I put into the speech, so that here on the show, if you only watch television at home, you'll have access to more details than what you get on a very short story in a newspaper on it. And the other thing is this: if you'd like to watch a video of the speech delivery itself, it is available at the City of Stevens Point's website, and if you have trouble finding it on that website, you can call our office, 346-1997, and of course the area code is 715. So the speech itself, I was thinking about it for a very long time, and about the importance of the subject matter, and I just want to walk you through the highlights. So I started out with the fact that I believe that our state of our county is directly related to the state of our groundwater. For water is at the center of our lives. Groundwater is. It's the top few feet of groundwater that's the main source for our water in Portage County, and also for nearly every lake and stream in our county. It's the same source that we use to irrigate crops, run our businesses, and so on. And without a healthy aquifer, that here in Portage County, it would be an economic and environmental desert. So much depends on groundwater, and I go through a number of things about the fact that our bodies are 65% water if we're talking about adults. If we're talking about children, it's even a greater percentage than that. I share a story about being a little girl, a 6th grader in rural Fond du Lac County where I grew up, and that there was a shallow stream down the road, and I used to bicycle over a number of glacial hills to get there, and I called it the creek. And I would get off my bike, I'd look over one side, and then I'd look over the other, and how there was a farmhouse on one side and a marsh on the other, and that it really was a neat place. I learned so much there. And that what I would do is I'd watch the water run underneath the bridge and then run to the other side and watch it come out the other side. Anyway, this was a creek that I felt like was my own as a child. And then when I grew up, I realized and I learned that indeed it really was my creek. But it's yours too, because the water of the state of Wisconsin belongs to all of us. So I challenge everybody to think about their own fond memories of what water means in their lives. Here in Portage County, we have about 100 lakes and 115 miles of streams. I didn't even know those numbers before this speech. I had called on our GIS folks over in the Planning and Zoning Department to assist me with that, because it means you have to define lakes and define streams. It's a very interesting process in using various databases that we have. So about 100 lakes and about 115 miles of streams, to include premier fishing and swimming and waters to paddle and fish. Anyway, we have a storied history related to water. Of course, Stevens Point being the city of wonderful water and winning a number of different contests related to drinking water quality. Anyway, I put out the fact that I believe that we just have this huge fortune before us, that we have this great fortune that we're standing atop and living atop and working atop this amazing aquifer of groundwater. And it seems like it's the most plentiful resource any one of us could ever want or dream of. And if it's such a great asset to all of us here in Portage County, then I ask the question, why are we doing so little to steward it? For it appears that way to me from where I stand as county executive of this county. In 2011 and 2012, we, Portage County, had the dubious honor of being the county that pumped the most groundwater in the state of Wisconsin. In 2011, we pumped over 21 billion with a B gallons of water, and over 35 billion in 2012. Of course, that was a drought year. And now our 2013 draft numbers were out right before I delivered this speech, and that was about 27 billion gallons. Now, most of that water, the quantity of water, is mostly used to irrigate our crops and to fuel our 6 billion, again with a B, $6 billion agricultural economy. It's a very important part of our world here that we have a strong ag economy. And over the, so about 73 to 83% of the water over those 3 years is a quantity that we use to operate our ag economy, especially irrigating our crops. Over the past 3 years, about 8 to 13% of those billions of gallons each year were used to pump for municipal water. So when you open your tap at home, if you live in the city or the village of Plover, or if you live in the village of Junction City, or if you live in the village of Rosholt, these are places, the village of Almond, these are places where you will pump municipal water. And then the rest of the folks out in the county are on their own septic systems, all right? So when we pump water from our municipal systems, most of the water, say in the city of Stevens Point, the village of Whiting, and the village of Plover, that water is mostly sent downstream, down the Wisconsin River, and so it's lost to our groundwater basin in the county. In this speech, then, I ask, so what are we doing to manage our aquifer and protect our future? This is our shared future. Without water, we have nothing here. And even though we've been in a wetter cycle for precipitation since about 1970, the health of some of our lakes and streams indicate that we are not doing so well. And when we pump water out of our groundwater, it is an absolute bedrock principle that we take water from somewhere. Now remember, I said that the lakes and streams of our county take the first few feet of groundwater to feed them, to provide the water to those bodies. And so when we pump, what happens is we continue to lower groundwater, and if we're pumping in the area of those particular bodies of water, lakes or streams, what happens is we affect them, because the water comes from those lakes and streams and into the irrigation pipelines. So anyway, when you're pumping at rates of millions of gallons of water a day in areas located near our lakes and streams, it's like drinking down the lakes and streams as we sip a beverage through a straw. So how much do we value our natural aquatic ecosystems in Portage County is the next question. How much do we value them? How much do you value them? And what are we doing then to manage for those values? But then I direct attention to, what about our human systems in Portage County? How are we doing to manage those? And I explain that there are some recent questions about water issues in the town of Hull, and you've read about some of those in the news. There are 52 residences in my subdivision. I also have some concerns about a potential high cap well that will go in just north of the vicinity of these homes, just north of the subdivision and adjacent to it from the direction our water comes in our mapping of groundwater in our neighborhoods. So I lay those things out and express concerns about how are we doing to manage. Because what we're doing now is, it seems to be that we're pitting water users against water users, and we're all water users. And so if we care about the future of Portage County, it would seem to me that we want to hit this off at the pass and make sure that we can go forward with a collaborative plan about how to manage our water together. So again, we can all be in our neighborhoods and in our communities and our businesses and in our agricultural economy and know that we're doing the right thing together for our shared future. I share a story that my grandfather was a potato farmer in the Plainfield area, and that my descendants helped to settle the Almond area. And so I value our agricultural heritage, and I think it's something to celebrate, and I believe that it is for all of us to celebrate. At the same time, I know that water usages for our businesses is more important than ever before, and if we're growing our economy and bringing in new businesses, we better make sure that we can have the promise of water for them. I mentioned that we took a trip out west. I took a trip to Yosemite National Park, and all along the road on Highway 99, there were these pictures, these signs along the road in these desolate sandy fields that look like our sandy fields, and they were fields that had these signs that said no water equals no jobs, solve the water crisis in California, and it noted that it was related to Valley Farms in 2014, and they aren't able to operate to grow their crops there anymore because there isn't any water, not even for irrigation. And so anyway, I showed a big picture of this sign, and that's available in the copy of the speech on the website as well. So I put a plea out that says that I hope that we could come together as a community and get serious about some actions that we can take to steward our precious resources. Because I'm not interested in finding out if a San Joaquin Valley, that place in California with the no water equals no job signs, I'm not interested in finding out if that scenario can happen here in Portage County. For we have a lot of similarities related to our soils. They've lost a number of lakes in their area that no longer have water in them because they pumped the water out of the ground, and it's now a bit of a desert out there. And so anyway, we have an opportunity. We don't have to wait on this. And I will be working over the next 6 months with our planning and zoning team to get out for various listening sessions. We're going to be talking with various different groups. We're going to be centering on the values of our community and figuring out what we can do to plan and to take actions now to protect our groundwater resources. At the end of the speech, I recommend, again, that none of us point fingers to anybody, at anyone, because we're all water users, and that we all have something that we can do to ensure a healthier future. But at the same time, we have to really come together across all sectors to ensure that we find the right solutions that work for all of us. And then I believe that we can develop a world-class groundwater stewardship plan and model, and that we can teach others how we did it once we put it to work. I'm looking at a landscape level plan, and I will be out there. You're going to hear about a whole lot of listening sessions and other meetings and groups that I'm going to be calling together or joining to gather their perspectives and see how we can take the right kinds of actions forward. And the last piece of the speech is this, and I want to read the last piece to you. So last year, my husband and I were taking a few days together in the Kettle Moraine area in Fond du Lac County, and I took him for the first time to the creek of my childhood. 35 years had passed since I last stood on that bridge in rural Fond du Lac County. And I'll tell you what, the shallow stream still flowed, and the round pebbles still shone like shiny pennies in the water below in that stream as I looked from the bridge. So I asked the question, what will the children of Portage County find when they visit their beloved lake or stream 35 years from now? The choice is up to us, all of us. Portage County, we can do this. I really believe so. And we've never had a greater opportunity than now to step up and lead in an effort to safeguard our future, because everything is connected to everything else. Every water user is connected to every other water user. And what we do today, what actions we choose to take now, will make all the difference tomorrow. So anyway, everybody, thank you for listening through the speech here. I wanted to make sure that you had it straight from me as to what my speech did or didn't have in it. Again, not about pointing fingers, but about a shared future that we all chart together. Now, I'd like to turn to my very patient guest, Tim Cisewski. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, president of our EMS association here in Portage County.
Yes.
And I'd love to have you tell everybody about our EMS association and about yourself, how many years you've been working in EMS here.
Well, a little bit of my history. I've been involved in EMS for 22 years. Really got involved with it related to an unfortunate incident where an incident with my son. It was nothing significant, but that was my first interaction with an ambulance. And from that point it grew, and it grew as a hobby. So 22 years. And it's evolved. We've seen a lot.
So before we go too much into this, can you help everybody understand what a first responder really is?
A first responder has evolved over time. So it's a first responder, also known as an EMR, emergency medical responder. If you look back 20 years ago, it was a group of folks that were in outlying areas that would be called to an emergency scene, a 911 scene, to arrive prior to an ambulance and begin medical care of some sort. And this could be trauma-related, medical-related, even some of those positive things such as childbirth. That has evolved a little bit to where, while we still do that, we're getting more involved with special event coverage. We're more interacting with the ambulance services, so we're that extra set of hands, not just the first responder, but we form a team and work as a system.
Now in Portage County, we have this great network of resources in our EMS system. Let's talk about that. We've got these 11 municipal groups and 2 business or industrial groups of responders that work as teams.
Correct.
Yeah, let's talk about that so everybody can understand what it looks like in Portage County.
Portage County is very unique compared to other counties. We have border-to-border coverage of some sort. Every municipality may not have a group themselves, but they're covered by another municipality, so we have a nice network across the county. These folks, in many cases, are home, doing their regular routine things when they get called to these scenes. Some may be at work. In some fortunate cases, the employers allow them to leave for these specific incidents. Yeah, it's a fabulous thing because they're giving back to the community. You know, they're taking away from the employer for a short period of time, their time, but they're able to return and, you know, function, you know, right back where they were, but they provided that extra county service.
Yeah, so, all right, so many of them are volunteers. Are all of them volunteers?
It's really varies across the county. Each municipality has their own unique system. So what we're trying to do as a county is bring this to a more systematic approach as to how we look at our first responders, or how do we compensate our first responders. Some are volunteer, and some are paid a stipend of some sort. That might be a small stipend per hour, or it may be a per call stipend. And then, you know, there's things such as picnics and special events that they're recognized for.
Sure. I looked back at our EMS Summit information that we held in May, and you were there, of course, introduced and so on. At that time, we had 157 responders that are out spread across our community, and I remember we pulled up the list of all of these 11 municipalities that have them. So we have the Almond EMS, the Amherst EMS, Bancroft EMS, Dewey, Grant, Hull, Plover, Rosholt, Rudolph, Sharon, and Stockton EMS clusters, if you would. They talk about the numbers of responders in those particular groups. And then we have one at McCain Foods with 13 responders, and at Warzella Publishing with 9 responders. Yeah, so as a president of the EMS Association, what are the kinds of things that you do in working with the 157 people spread across all of these cluster teams, border to border in Portage County?
As I mentioned, this evolved, and we're looking at those systematic approaches. So we want to ensure that one municipality is doing something very similar in another municipality. We do that through training, through networking. We have every other month EMS Association meeting that brings these folks together, and we can talk about items that affect the groups as well as the overall system. And the overall system includes the EMS providers at an ambulance level. county government, city government, village
Making it
government, that
seamless.
type of thing. Seamless, right.
Yeah.
So we're always working with them. It may be something as simple as identification, all the way up to skills. On an annual basis, we work with the county as well as the medical director to come up with a training topic that's dispersed across the county, and it's something that we feel would affect Portage County. So there's all those ongoing training opportunities, network situations where we're always working with those groups. I get involved with them on a personal basis to field questions, to work with them, to talk about what one group is doing, the positives, share policies and procedures. Why rewrite things when you can just copy?
Right. Now, as we look at our solutions for countywide EMS, you know we have a countywide system right now. We know that we have been seeking ways to enhance and improve that system. I believe that one of the solutions lies in strengthening our network of first responders across the land. These are the first people to the scene. These are the people that save lives. It isn't an ambulance that comes from 10 minutes away to save a life. You save the life by getting on the scene quickly, as first responders often do, are the first ones there. And anyway, so if we want to recruit more first responders and train them, we're working on this across the county. What advice would you have, and who should folks call?
If you're interested in providing to the system, I would encourage you to call your local municipal government, your village government, your local fire department, or Portage County Emergency Government. If you go to emergency government, they will get you in contact with a specific group, and that contact information would be forwarded at that time.
It's a great way for folks to have a different way of serving, and maybe you know, and refining their skills and staying connected. And boy, they know their neighbors, and so that's oftentimes where the best care comes from.
Right.
Quickly on the scene.
Yeah, it's real rewarding to be able to go out and help somebody. And those folks that are helping are your neighbors, your coworkers, somebody that you may pass in the supermarket. Those are the folks that are out there doing this job, and we find it very rewarding.
Wow. So I know we only have a couple of minutes left, but okay, so every year in October we have the EMS Association banquet. Let's talk about what's going to happen at that banquet coming up, Tim.
Okay, that banquet is hosted by a different group every year, and there's a series of awards that are giving out. Individual groups will give an outstanding EMS award to somebody in their group that did something extremely positive, went above and beyond, saved a life. There's medical directors awards, president's awards, and each one has defined criteria for something that they did. We also recognize folks out in the community. You may have a specific employer that went to the aid of somebody, you know, maybe somebody visiting their facility, and they were able to come to their aid, and we recognize them and award them for that.
Those stories that they tell about the life-saving events and so on are really something when I've gone to this event.
Yes.
And the families of people that are first responders at the center of their lives, you know, and this network. I want to say thank you to you, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership in Portage County.
You bet.
And also to all the other responders out there that make this work for all of us and save lives every single day in our county. Without you all, we wouldn't be anywhere close to where we are. And I'll just look forward to the opportunity to connect more people with this kind of way to serve.
You bet. Real rewarding.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next month, I hope that Sarah Brish will join me. We're going to do an after action on Farm Technology Days, talk about how awesome the event was. Thank you, everybody, for joining me.